Hello, 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 everybody. Jennifer Hart here with the Connected Show. This is previously recorded. I like to say that because if you comment or have any questions as the show is going on and we don't answer or acknowledge you, that is why. So this is previously recorded, but say hello. Where are you calling in from, watching? If you do have questions throughout, please post them in the comments and we will get to them whenever we are able to. We'll be watching. And if you don't know me, welcome, say hello, introduce yourself, tell me a little bit about you, what brought you here. I always like to see, how did the universe get us connected? Because there's just so many magical connections happening all the time that we stumble upon these things or these people and we're like, I don't even know how I got here. And in fact, that's actually what happened with my guest today, which is so cool and I'm excited to share. And just so you know, I am the creator of the Connected Soul Network. What is that exactly? Well, I service two types of people, and I'm sharing this with you because it is now up and running. Half of it has been launched. The other half is in progress and is coming like so super soon. So I service people who are what I call explorers. They're people that are looking for any type of guidance, support, self-exploration, discovery, hence the name explorers, seeking knowledge, betterment, and personal development for their life and for themselves. And that can be in any aspect of life: health, finances, business, romantic relationships, friends and family, you name it. It falls somewhere under what we are doing in the world. And then I also help and service guides. Guides are any type of people that are healers, coaches, therapists, any type of practitioner, and all supporting business roles. Why do supporting business roles fall into that? Because guides have businesses and they need support in their business to be able to serve you as an explorer or as a guide, because guides are explorers as well. And with that being said, Guides membership is open. And if you are interested, I'll always have the link in the captions. You can check it out and join the membership with us. We are going to talk about some of our upcoming events for the membership today because our guest, Sheyna, will be speaking, healing and also leading some meditations at some of the upcoming events. So with that being said, I would love to introduce our guest, Sheyna Galyan. I want to make sure that I say that right. It is a beautiful name. Is an award-winning author, poet, and former mental health counselor who writes and speaks about the intersection of creativity, mental health, and spirituality. Very beautiful. Their latest book is 10 Things Your Soul Guides Want You to Know, especially if you have anxiety, depression, chronic pain, or PTSD, with questions and arguments from a human with all four. I love that. The founder of Soul Guides, Sheyna also coaches people privately to help them trust themselves and their own soul guides. Sheyna holds advanced degrees in psychology and education, and according to their now adult children, is half human and half special. We're going to talk about that, which is baffling because Sheyna puts their pants on one eyebrow at a time like everyone else. Sheyna is a hoot, and I cannot wait to bring them on. Did I do okay with them?
Perfect.
Okay, good. So we're actually going to talk about that because I'm super excited to learn more and also share. Welcome, first and foremost.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm super excited. Okay, I want to dive right into, what does special mean? I know I asked you earlier, but in case anyone else is like, what does special mean? Tell us, what does that mean?
Well, my kids, who are both now adults, young adults, are very perceptive, and they've said numerous times that they're certain I am not completely human. They haven't quite figured out what the special part is, except that it's the same part of me that insists that, for instance, I'm 50% spiritual, 40% practical, 35% frugal, and 103% bad at math.
I love
Uh, so I like taking things that we all assume or take for granted and flipping them on their head.
I love that. I love all of your humor as well and everything, like putting on one eyebrow at a time and then 100%, 3% bat at math. It cracks me up. And that's how I know that we are good people because I don't feel human all the time either. And I'm sure that a lot of people that are watching this can definitely resonate. Like the people who are spiritual and have done maybe some exploration among the realms, which is a whole nother live in itself to talk and teach about that, could definitely relate to that. And then some other people might be like, that maybe that's me too. I don't know, but we'll get into that another day.
It's how do I want to say this? For a lot of us, I think we forget how to human.
Yep.
If we ever fully knew in the first place.
Yep.
And some of the work I do is about bringing all of that sort of etheric down into the physical, where we can make it ours.
I love that because we came here to have a human experience. And I know for myself, speaking for myself, I tend to be up in the woo, and I'm like, bring it back down, bring it back down. Okay, so I want to talk about if you're watching this, you've noticed that Sheyna has pronouns. And as a person who is learning more about pronouns and education, Sheyna was very nice to help me understand more. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity to share more about that and kind of educate, because I have heard of pronouns, but I had never heard of EL. EL. Yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell us just a little bit more about that? And also, I told you this earlier, if for some reason I use it incorrectly or use the wrong pronoun at any time, please stop me and let me know. So, because I want to be respectful and I'm really curious to learn more, because I think what's happening is there's a lot of people don't understand why or how it works, or at least that's where I have started. And we are going to do a separate live on this. We've already talked about it because there's lots of parts to it. So I'll let you get to that too, just as a small snippet today, just to educate people a little bit why we're here before we get started.
So I came to pronouns later in life. It was when my kids were attending school and the school put on a program for other students and their families to talk about different identities, the different aspects of gender and sexuality, such as gender expression, like how you present yourself, gender identity, which is where the pronouns come in, the assigned gender at birth, and then sexual orientation. And all my life, I didn't want to be a she. I knew I wasn't a girl, but I wasn't really a boy. Like, my body is female. And nothing ever felt right until late last year. I follow things about language and how language changes. And there was an article about a new pronoun that had appeared in a prestigious French dictionary, _, which was a combination of il, meaning male, and elle, meaning female. And so it was the new French non-binary pronoun that was being used in France, and it was used enough that now the dictionary had added it. And the moment I saw it, it was like, mine. I want, like, that's it. That's the one that's right. Now, I don't speak French. So you may wonder, like, why am I suddenly interested in a French pronoun? It's because in Hebrew, IEL is a possessive suffix that generally translates to of God. You see it in a lot of names like Daniel, Gabriel.
Okay.
It's the same piece.
Yeah.
So, and that, like, the real me, the me, my essence that is currently inhabiting this vessel is of God. So, Yel.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And one question that came through that I think could be on the minds of people is, of course, that's an assumption, but it's like how. So what I heard and what you shared is like it felt aligned for your soul. It was just like when you were like, I want that. It's like how do you determine between things being trendy or like the thing versus like that soul knowing? Because knowing what I know about you, I know that it was like a soul, like, oh, that feels really good. Like, and people might resonate when I say that, but like because the pronoun thing is newer as far as I know. And so it's like, oh, this is just a trend that's going on. How do we decipher that? Or how do we understand that better?
So two things I can think of off the top of my head. One, is it coming from within you, or is it coming from how you want to be perceived by others? For me, it came from deep within, and I'm also Jewish, so the tie to Hebrew is really strong. It was like I almost don't even care whether other people ever use it or if they always use they, but it's, for me, like, that is an identity piece for me that rings true.
Yeah.
I find generally with trends, it's about wanting to be seen by others in a certain way. So then it would be, well, everybody else has to call me this because it's about them, not really about who I am inside. And then the second thing is the type of emotion that comes with it. If it's an expansive, kind of joyous lighting up, that is what I would consider an aligned kind of thing. Whereas if it's from fear, like fear about what other people will think, then it's not.
Yeah.
Fear is never part of alignment.
I love that. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I kind of wrote down some notes while you were speaking because I do want to do a live and dive deeper into this for my own understanding, and also so that if anybody else is wanting to, come from a place of curiosity and to just hear and learn more, that they can join us also. But so you said like there's 4 makeups of gender, which is the gender identity, gender expression, sexuality, and then the actual physical biological sex. Did I
Correct.
Right? Okay, cool. So if that is a topic that interests you, stay tuned. I don't know when we're going to do that, but that is definitely something I would love to do. And I want to thank Sheyna because they have created a safe space for me to be able to come with my questions. I was telling a story to Sheyna that I was on a dating app quite some time back, and the guy, well, I guess I don't know what his pronouns were at the time, but I know that they had said they were non-binary. And so I was asking questions because I tried to Google it and I didn't understand exactly. And then they just ghosted me. And I was like, well, thank you. I mean, obviously we weren't a match for dating, but like I was still trying to learn and understand. So I appreciate you being open. Okay, with that being said, I always like to start my show. We didn't because I wanted to address your pronouns first. Is the first time that I think that I've really worked with someone that had pronouns other than he, her. No, sorry. He, him, and she, her. Okay, there we go. I love your sense of humor. Thank you. Okay, so how we met. I mentioned this earlier, just by the grace of the universe. We have no idea how we got connected. So we tried to figure it out, like our connections, our mutual friends, no idea. And then I was like, maybe it was through a networking group that I went to that you are also a part of. And then I was like, I went to one meeting and you weren't at that meeting. You know, for sure you weren't there. So I'm like, I have no idea. And what's so weird about it is that I went to your Facebook profile, and usually you can click, if you're on a desktop, see friendship. And that will show you at what month and year you became friends. Yours is non-existent. It did not show me anything. I do not know why. I was like, this is so weird. Why won't you show us how we're connected? But I just trust that we are meant to connect. And I felt just very aligned when we actually had our connection call. And what's so cool about Sheyna is that they saw a post about the guides membership and was like, hell yes, and jumped in. And so Sheyna is one of our newest guides. Welcome, welcome to the Connected Soul Network membership as a guide. And I explained earlier what guides are. Guides are people that guide others on their own personal development and, for me, a spirituality journey. So we're going to talk more about that today, which is super exciting. I'd say let's start with, we're going to talk about her book. Sorry, their book. It's real time right here. Action. We are going to talk about their book that also ties into what I just said about guiding other people. And Sheyna is the creator of Soul Guides. So we'll talk about that also, because I love that name. And I have referred to myself as a soul guide because I don't feel like I'm a coach. And I'm just here to guide other people on their journey. And they have all the knowledge, in my opinion, with themselves and with their source. So, okay. How did you get started in what you do, and what do you do? We'll just group it together.
So what I do is I help people, especially those with mental health challenges, um, uh, trauma backgrounds, ADHD, neurodivergence, all of which I am and have, to trust themselves and to trust their soul guides. I use the term soul guides as an umbrella term. It's a non-religious, depending on the person and their background, their beliefs, their culture, it could be spirit guides, angels, ancestors, animal spirits, Holy Spirit, source, God, and so to trust them, so that they can have the life they've always wanted, but were taught they either couldn't have or didn't deserve. I've been able to speak with my guides since I was about 3, that I know of. That's how far back my memory of those conversations goes. And I didn't know it at the time, but in the sometimes violent, very chaotic childhood that I grew up in, I was also sharing with my parents what their guides wanted them to know. Which, at least some of the time, a lot of the time, helped them resolve their differences with each other so that we had peace in our household for a few months, maybe. And it wasn't until 2017 that one of my coaches said to me, "You're doing something that you're not claiming." And I just had an experience where another person's guide had appeared to me and wanted to give them a message. And I had done that. It wasn't new or unusual. It just never really occurred to me that that's what I was doing. And so I told her, oh, I'm not only talking with my guides, I'm talking with other people's guides with their permission. And that's a key part. If I don't have the person's permission or the permission of all the guides involved, it doesn't happen.
That makes sense.
And that began as I was sharing this with close friends and my spouse. They kept encouraging me to do this for other people and to create a business around it. And it took 2 years for me to be convinced, but I finally did and launched Soul Guides in 2019.
Hey, that's super exciting. I love your story because I feel like myself and maybe people watching can relate to it. That it's like we have a knowing and we have to release some stuff or get clear to be able to step into the space and the power that we hold with certain things of our soul's gifts and our soul's callings. We all have them. At least that's what I believe. And it's tapping into them. And you and I talked about this. There could be multiple of them and it can look like anything, right? And so that's really cool that you were able to find your way back to who your true essence is and was, and to now step into that role because there's so many people waiting out there for you and the things that you have to offer. And if we don't do that work and be brave to step into these things and to come on and be our authentic selves, then that ripple effect of healing and empowerment and inspiration does not happen. So congratulations on launching your business officially. And thank you for sharing it with us and those of us in the membership and people who aren't in the membership that might be watching this as well. Okay, so we talked about like kind of how you got started. What services, I know we're going to talk about your book, which is the big thing right now, but also like what other things and services are you offering to people in your soul gifts and your soul's calling, or what is the soul guides, I guess, also?
Not sure I understand that last question.
So you started Soul Guides. And so is Soul Guides just where you are able to connect people with their soul guides, or?
Okay.
Cleared up.
So right now I'm doing one-on-one coaching. I will be next year doing some group coaching, initially around the book. And then for those who've gone through the work with the book, then we'll do an ongoing deep dive. There are a lot of people who work with spirit guides, angels, etc. My understanding, there are differences between them, but it's not super important that people know what they are.
Yeah.
As one of my guides keeps telling me, the message is more important than the messenger.
I love that. That's beautiful.
But many of these people work so that someone comes to them, hires them to connect with their guides, to give whatever messages there are. And then the client takes that message and goes and does whatever with their life. And if they want to know more, they come back and hire the coach again, that's great and necessary. And for some people, that is a perfect fit.
Yeah.
My people, they want to have the relationship themselves. So what I do is help them create and then maintain an ongoing, full, loving partnership with their own guides, so that they can turn to their own guides whenever they want to. They don't have to come to me. They don't have to look to experts outside themselves. They have everything they need within them. So I effectively want to work myself out of a job. I would love it if everyone who wants to have an ongoing relationship with their guides has it.
Yeah. And you crack me up because there's that humor again, which I love. And also, I feel like that's physically impossible to work yourself out of a job because there's 8 billion people on the planet right now or something like that. And you're one person. So you got time. Like, don't worry about it. And then there's new people coming in all the time. So I wouldn't stress. But I like that humor in it. Okay, let's talk about your book. So your book is called, hold on, I made a little banner for it. 10 things your soul guides want you to know, especially if you have anxiety, depression, chronic pain, or PTSD, with questions and arguments from a human with all 4. Tell me more about the book.
So the book is written, it's entirely dialogue.
I think that's fun. It's different.
Yeah. It's this has been kind of an ongoing, the idea for it first was floated by me from my guides in 2013.
Whoa,
and my initial response was, oh, hell no. Because I still believed in 2013 that, like, who in their right mind channels a book? You know, this is going to get me locked up in a psychiatric hospital. So no way was I doing that. But in 2017, especially with that one coach who said, you're doing something you're not claiming, everything started to shift. And I knew that I really wanted to make the book most accessible to people, especially with anxiety, depression, pain, and trauma, in part because so many of the books out there around guides don't address those things. It's almost if we don't acknowledge it, then it won't be real. But to the people who cope with those things, it's very real while they're coping with it.
Yeah.
And I have found, as someone who has coped with recurring anxiety and depression, fibromyalgia, and complex PTSD, that my guides in my life, like, I mean, they've saved my life more times than once. Sometimes in a rather dramatic way. And I don't want people who are dealing with those things to have to feel the pain that I felt any longer than they absolutely have to.
Yeah.
So the things talked about in the book they're 10 relatively large, broad topics like trust and grief and money and religion and relationships and family. And the first chapter actually is about self-talk and the inner critic.
Huge.
And it's really, so my guide said, my primary guide, Dresden, said this would be the easiest book I ever wrote. They'd talk, I'd write.
Yeah.
It actually wound up being the hardest book I've ever written.
Really?
Really. Because they would say things and I would be, hold up, like, hang on a sec. Like, you cannot just say that. And, I have questions.
Yeah.
And there are things like, we all have heard stories about people who listened to their intuition or got some sort of intuitive hit, and as a result, avoided some sort of tragedy. But what about the people that died in that tragedy? Like that's almost never addressed.
Yeah.
And so I wanted my guide's perspective on, like, well, what's that about? We actually, I almost can never use the word resonate without laughing, because we had a whole conversation in the book about resonate. I had been using it in terms of like being in harmony or in alignment, until they pointed out that somebody who is like really upset at something is still resonating with it, just not in a way that we might like.
Yeah.
So in the course of doing the book, I had a lot of learning. I got to ask all the questions I really wanted to ask. I got answers to most of them. Some of them, they questioned why I wanted to know the answer to the question.
Interesting.
And the process of writing the book required me to go deep. And it wasn't all just a sort of ethereal, philosophical conversation about spirituality. It was really bring it down into the here and now, and how does it apply to things like a stillbirth, which I had, or conflict with blood relatives, or issues around work and having one's identity combined in what you do.
Yeah. I feel like that's really juicy, that people can really relate to those things and ask why and want to know the answers. And if that's the type of stuff that you cover in the book, I mean, it sounds super interesting anyway. So it's like, this is what I've heard in everything you shared. So you wrote this book because it was a nudge from the universe or your guides, whatever people call it. And I want to break this down because I was like, for the people watching to stop and think about in their life, what are you being nudged to do? And you are going to keep getting these nudges, and they're going to get louder until you listen. Like my nudges was sell my stuff and travel the world. I heard this nudge like 10 years prior before I actually did it. And I wasn't that person to hold the space for that nudge. Like it crossed my mind. I made a Facebook post about it, and I was like, what would you rather do? Sell your stuff and travel the world or move to a new city? So it was in my realm, but I was not a person to do it. And so I totally resonate. There's that word with what you said when you were like, I heard it in 2013 and was like, oh, hell no. And then it didn't actually happen until 2017. So if you're watching this, what's coming to mind for you? What is like, who has been nudging you to do something? I have a friend, if he watches this, then it'll be really funny, but he always talks about wanting to open a pizza shop. I have been trying to support him and getting that nudge like done, because I'm like, dude, people, like families are going to congregate at your pizza shop. Like maybe like people are going to go on dates or meet and like create families at your pizza shop. Like who knows, but you've wanted to do it. Like you should. So I wanted to.
A million fan fictions have begun that way.
Oh, I love that. That's so fun. So then you had this nudge and you finally listened to it. And then your book is actually channeled by your guides. But what you did that's different than some books, I'm sure maybe there's books similar to what you've done, but you showed up as not only the spiritual guides part of the channel, but you question as a human being. Well, here's my questions. And so it's back and forth dialogue, which makes it really interesting, in my opinion, to read, because it's not a typical self-help book. It's also interesting because you had told me that you have also wrote a couple other books, and they were novels. What kind of novels were they?
Suspense novels.
Suspense novels. And I can see that you would be a great writer because just your jokes are hilarious. I think they're really funny. And you do too, which I love. And that's why we get along really well, right? Because I'm always like, I think I'm so funny. And if anybody else laughs, like that's just an added bonus. I'm here to entertain myself.
My kids are often, I think you find that funnier than everybody else does.
And that's okay. I'm totally on board for that. So I love that you have that background of suspense novels, because that probably could maybe trickle over a little bit into the writing with this as well, which just makes it a really fun pair to play with. And we are going to put the link of the book in the caption. So if you're like, I want this book, you will be able to order it and off at Amazon.
It's on Amazon. If anyone who wants a
signed copy, do you have
signed inscribed copy, they can get it from my website.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. I'm going to put the website first so that they can connect and have the option to support you directly, and also to get an inscribed copy. That's way more cool. And then, you know, for some people, Amazon is just more convenient. So we'll put that as well, so that either way they can get the knowledge that they need and to know what their soul guides want them to know. And yeah, so we covered like what made you write it, what's it about. I made a list of things I wanted to ask you, and I do this so that I remember and I don't get off and go, dang it, I forgot. So I know that there's a ton of people watching that probably want to write their own book. And so they love to hear about when authors wrote books, because it makes it real that they can do it too. So if you are watching this, you can write a book. You probably are supposed to be writing a book, if not multiple. I'm working on I got my little book cover back here, working on my book coming out March 2023. That has been a journey itself. Oh, that's what else I wanted to say. Thank you. I felt like in hearing your story, I also heard that you dug even deeper into what you are teaching people for yourself, because you were saying that I had to trust, you didn't say it directly, but like in what you shared, I heard you teach people to trust themselves and trust their guides. And so it's like you did that for yourself even more in this book process. And that's what I've learned in my book process, is that writing the book is actually what the book is going to be about. Like what I learned and came through. And I had no idea until I actually started to put myself out there and write this book. And so I heard that for you too. And it's like the coolest experience. It really is an up level in itself. So
I firmly believe that all of us who are guides for other people, the work we do, as another one of my coaches says, first and foremost is always for ourselves.
Yeah, that mirror, right? That mirror effect. Yes, I love that. Okay, so what, just in speaking of that, what was your biggest challenge about writing the book?
Having to go so deep.
Yeah.
Having to really get into the emotions. And I kept wanting to know, like, well, what do I do with, they were telling me things, and it was like, well, okay, this is great, but what do I do? And so, for instance, in the chapter on grief and loss, my primary guide had worked with me for quite a while after my daughter was stillborn in 2007. And then I was told that by numerous doctors and surgeons not to have any more children because my body would not survive.
Wow.
So it was the loss of this one life, but then also the loss of potentially any future And I didn't really want to go into the grief around that. Nobody wants to feel that. And yet, part of the point of the chapter is that when we deny the feelings that we don't like, the feelings that aren't pleasant, we're denying a part of ourselves.
That's really good. Very true.
Like when we talk about raising our vibrations, it's not about only focusing on the happy emotions. It's about accepting and loving all of the parts of ourselves, including the parts that we don't like or are afraid of. And so going back to that grief and that loss, and what it has meant for me and what I've learned from it in the years since it happened, and how it changed how I am in the world.
Yeah.
I see now that was really, pardon the pun, fertile ground.
I love puns.
To talk about how we process grief and loss, and how the ways that a lot of us, especially in Western cultures, are actually doing ourselves a great disservice by trying to avoid or deny or stuff those feelings.
Yeah. As you were saying that, I saw like sweeping it under the rug. You know what I mean? Like we don't want to deal with it. So we just make ourselves really busy and do everything to avoid it, which is very much American culture, is like always go, go, go. Because when we sit and we're still, it's like we have to be and maybe feel or sit with those feelings. But I love what you said about high vibration is being able to accept all the feelings as a whole and to be able to hold them. And that's what I've really been learning about lately, is like the polarity of things. Like it's not always going to be, I'm a super positive person. And I also understand that, like exactly what you said, if we don't deal or acknowledge those pieces of ourselves, we are denying a part of ourselves. And I don't know, I always like to say, like, on the other side of pain is peace. And so if you can sit and hold it, then it's huge. And it's funny because yesterday, my friend reached out and was like, hey, I'm kind of upset. Do you have time to hold space? And I'm so sorry because I know you're like so excited and like having this great launch with the membership. And I was like, I can hold both. Like I can hold the space for you to be in grief and I can still be happy for myself. And I feel like that's really that sweet spot, especially if we can do that for ourselves. Like, today I'm sad about this, and shit, I'm also happy because I just did this, you know? So that's beautiful what you said. Thank you for sharing that. What feeling has writing this book specifically given you?
It's given me a solid felt sense. So like a somatic physical sensation of trust.
Ooh, I love it. That goes back to what I said, where it's like you're teaching people, you are doing the work of what you're teaching people. You had already done it, but now you just redid it again because there's always, you know, new level to move into.
Well, and the thing with trust is, in my experience, it's an ongoing decision.
Yes.
It's not like you can say, okay, I trust myself, and then check, I'm done. Move on. I have a sign on a Post-it note right hanging from my monitor that says embodying trust.
I love that. I actually have a label maker. Mine says action, integration, embodiment. But my newest phrase that I'm telling myself every day, especially as I step into holding the space of this membership, because I was so scared for so long, I was blocking myself, was I trust and believe in myself. And I'll say this for myself, and you can tell me if you have additional input on it, but it's like in trusting ourselves, it's not that we always know the right thing to do. It's that we trust that we'll be able to figure it out. And that has been like the game changer for me, is that I don't know all the answers all the time, but I can figure it out. I have a huge network of people. I have support. When I mess up, I can trust that I will figure out how to create and make it right, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I've learned for myself lately, is that what I thought trusting myself was and what it actually is as I'm doing it is quite different and very cool at the same time. So every day I trust and believe in myself. I can figure it out.
I have a slightly different perspective on that.
Please share.
So I agree. We don't always know everything. In fact, I would argue that most of the time we don't know everything. And it's not always for us to know everything.
True.
But what we can trust is that we have what we need within us in this moment.
Ooh, I like that.
For me, when I say figure it out, and this is not a criticism of you, it's just for me personally, when I say that, I go to my head. And then it's problem solving.
Yeah.
And I ignore the wisdom of my body and my energy and my heart. Because my brain thinks it's more important than any other part of me.
No, that's good. I agree. 100%.
But my heart knows that it's all important.
Yes. And we have that wisdom inside of us too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, I grew up in a very intellectual family with, like, you know, everything I say needs to be backed up by, you know, 2 sources and cited appropriately. And so getting to the point where I now trust my energy more than I trust my mind.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. So, perfect. You said it perfect. Yes, because that's the other thing too, is knowing, and I'm learning and stepping into this more, is like the embodiment piece of it. Just like you said, I embody the trust, and my body tells me. Sometimes my mind might tell me one thing, but my body is telling me the other. And it's the body that we actually need to listen to, because the body is, in my opinion, wiser than the mental piece and knows things before the mental piece comes to it, which is why somatic practices of like doing things that get us back into the body. And this is where I am in my life right now personally, and also connecting with like emotions and sensations and feelings is very important. So and this is a whole nother life, but like when your body starts to like, I have noticed that if I have really high anxiety around someone, that tends to be my warning sign that there's like maybe an energetic misalignment with that person, and I need to be on alert, or they are intimidating to me in some way. So I have seen both of those. So I have to then discern, well, which one is it that my body is trying to show me? But I'm like, that will have to be the body and the somatics and the like, that trust and the feelings, a whole nother live, because we could just go off on that.
I love how you said energetic misalignment.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't make any other person bad or wrong.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. That just came through actually as a channel. I've never said that like when describing that previously. So thanks, universe. I appreciate that. It's probably my guides. So basically, like people who want to get to like, okay, would you say that your book will help people who want to get to know their guides better? Does the book help with that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
The last chapter, so it says 10 things. I suppose it could be 11. The last chapter is about connecting with your own guides.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a process in the book. Each chapter at the end has questions and like exercises
Oh, cool.
Many of them were ones that my guides led me through in the chapter itself. And so it's an opportunity for the reader to then do it for themselves. And chapter 11 is how to invite your guides to be more active in your life. And one of the things that comes up often, they're huge fans of consent and free will.
Yeah.
And so, like, we can say, oh, I want a relationship with my guides. I want to know them. I want to be able to communicate with them. But if we never ask them into our lives, if we don't open the door or invite them in, they won't come.
Yeah.
So asking is actually a big first step.
That's like the key, because if you don't ask, you can't receive. That's like the key to life, period. But what I heard, and I don't know if this is true, but I heard like another book could be coming about that 11th chapter. And I don't know. That's what
I'm not sure. When I asked, like, shouldn't this be a whole different book?
Yeah.
Because there are books about how to connect with your guides.
Yes.
And what Dresden told me was that it's pretty simple. It's a skill. It's a practice that the doing it requires repetition. It's not something, very seldom does it work perfectly on the first try.
Right.
Especially for people who have dampened their intuition or didn't even believe in guides until recently, or who have any sort of fears or old religious dogma about what and who guides are, and their intentions. But the process of actually inviting them in is pretty simple, beginning with asking, but then understanding that the ways that they communicate, they're different for all of us. I would love it if it was a booming voice from the sky, or a full-bodied apparition would appear in front of us and say something. Like, that works great in TV and movies.
Yeah.
It almost never happens that way in real life. It's far more subtle. And so our part is to notice rather than listen. It's about noticing when we ask them for guidance. Do we have any images or symbols or colors that come to mind? Do we hear anything? Do we have thoughts that simply pop into our head and feel right, but we don't know how we know them?
Yeah.
Are there physical sensations? Do we have dreams that feel like that wasn't quite a dream?
Yeah.
Especially in that between sleep and awake period.
Yeah. So maybe it's not another book. I feel like then what it is it's moving on when you open it to the public. You mentioned it earlier. You have the book. What did you call it? The book program, which is going through your book. I don't know.
Yeah,
what do you call it?
Book immersion.
Book immersion. Okay, thank you.
Like diving into the pool and being immersed in.
Yes. So it's your book immersion that you are going to open to the public sometime next year. And after that, you'll have your membership that people will come in and stay immersed. And that would be like the embodiment and the practice. So stay tuned, everybody, for that. I will post up Sheyna's website so that the people, if they want to follow you, they can, I assume, find your social media channels there that you are live on. And stay tuned of what Sheyna is putting out into the world and when. And of course, being a guide in the membership, you will be able to see Sheyna on future lives and interviews that we are going to discuss all the new things that are coming out. And I wanted to mention as we wrap up that Sheyna is going to be our featured healer on the Guides event for Called to Connect, which is on December 7th at 10:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then you are going to be the intention setter at the Explorers event, which is on winter solstice. So it'll be the winter solstice edition, extra special. And that one is for Explorers and Guides, Wednesday, December 21st from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I will have the links in the captions so that people can register and join us and come and see Sheyna in action. Do you have anything else you would like to add prior to closing out?
I'll leave you with the first line of the book, which is something Dresden shared, which is, you would treat yourselves differently if you saw yourselves as the divine beings you are.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing yourself and your time and energy and presence with us today on this interview and also in the membership. I'm so excited to see what we're going to create together over time and how we're going to change and impact the world and inspire and empower others to step into getting to know themselves better, trusting themselves more, and maybe even for some of them, turning those soul callings and guidance into something even bigger than themselves.
And thank you for this opportunity. All of it.
It's my soul gifts and I love it and it brings me joy. So it just works perfectly, right? All right. Well, if there's nothing else, then thank you for watching. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. Say hello. Let us know that you were here. And we will see you hopefully at an upcoming event in the membership or just online if you want to be active and participating and just being a bystander. That's okay too. We welcome you in any form, shape, or whatever feels best to you. Have an amazing day and we will see you soon.